Hi, I'm Kelley. Let's talk about your value proposition. Your 30-second commercial, whatever you say that answers the question, what do you do for a living? Now, I've been around a long time, and unfortunately I've heard some really good value propositions and some really good 30-second commercials. The challenge is we're dealing in such a complex business that it's sometimes difficult to get our arms around this thing. So let's start by taking a step back. Let's take a step back and let's look at how do most companies deal with HR now, and then we can talk about how does that relate to our value proposition. Well, the reason, or the way that most companies deal with HR now, and when I say HR, I mean all the different facets of human resources, workers' comp, risk management, employee benefits, and payroll. Now, from an HR perspective, a lot of times they have an internal person who might be inexperienced. And if they're inexperienced, then that means they really don't have a strategic process for doing a lot of things or doing them very effectively. If they do have somebody that's experienced in this area, then chances are they're wearing a tremendous number of hats. And so they're also having to deal with a whole bunch of transactional HR and things like that. So again, it takes away their own effectiveness. So that being said, a lot of times they'll bring in consultants. Consultants can do any number of things from training to compliance and handbooks and all those kinds of things. They could also, when they get into trouble, they could also have to call an attorney. Maybe they even call a CPA. I'm amazed the number of companies that will use their CPA for human resources advice. Another thing is that when it comes to workers' comp, they have actually outsourced that to a carrier. And a lot of times, if the company needs safety or risk management or loss prevention, whatever you want to call it, when they need some sort of program like that, again, they go to a third party. Chances are safety is not done by the carrier. When it comes to benefits, employee benefits specifically, you have multiple carriers dealing with medical insurance and dental insurance and life insurance and all the other different things, 401k or retirement plans, 125s and all that stuff. And they're dealing that with, or they're doing that with multiple carriers. And the problem is that they're motivated by cost. There's no real strategy on keeping costs low. Lastly is payroll. And payroll, in most companies out there in your major markets, 60% of companies out there, roughly give or take, obviously the percentages, will already be outsourcing payroll. So what's your value proposition? If this is the way, by the way, that they're handling things, then they're dealing with a lot of stuff. They're probably dealing with a lot of problems. So our value proposition is, quite frankly, we solve problems. We solve problems in the areas of human resources, or you could use employee stuff if it's a small deal, workers' comp, safety or risk management, benefits administration, and payroll. And our ultimate goal in taking care of all of these problems is to help your company be more profitable, maximize employee productivity, reduce the time that you spend doing transactional HR, reduce employment-related liability, and ultimately reducing labor cost. Does that make sense? Always end your value proposition with a little trial close. Does that make sense? And remember, our value proposition is PPTLC. Increase profitability, maximize employee productivity, reduce the time spent doing transactional HR, reduce employment-related liability, and ultimately lower labor cost. So now that we have that all down, or now that you have the talk track for it, if you want to write it out into a diagram, then you can just, obviously draw out human resources. You can put your firm name here in the middle, workers' comp, safety, benefits, and payroll. And you can basically say, we handle problems in human resources because it's not what you went into business to do, and you probably don't do it very well. And you don't have to be, you don't do it very well. You just say, you probably don't do it very well. Workers' comp, you have to have it. It's required by pretty much all the states out there. And if you want to keep workers' compensation rates down, it's a good idea, or workers' compensation costs down, it's a good idea to implement some sort of safety or risk management or loss prevention program. When it comes to benefits, you want to attract and retain the best quality employees, and we can help you do that. Lastly, payroll. You're required to pay payroll taxes and payroll and all of that, regardless of an employee's productivity. So you're probably already outsourcing payroll now, and if you're not, you should be. So you can use this as your value proposition if you want to draw this out, and you can draw it out very simply. And again, it's not what you went into business to do. Required by law, keep workers' comp costs down, attract and retain, required to pay wages regardless of productivity, file the taxes, the government forms, and all of those things. And if you're not outsourcing payroll, you probably should be. So again, the value proposition, we solve problems. We solve problems in the areas of human resources, workers' comp, risk management, employee benefits, and payroll. Our ultimate goal is to increase your profitability, maximize employee productivity, reduce the time that you spend doing transactional HR, and ultimately to reduce your labor cost. Does that make sense? Now, you can also do what I call the reverse PPTLC or CLTPP. Your PTLC, whatever, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what order you put it in, okay? The most important thing is that you start off by saying, we solve problems. We solve problems in the areas that we talked about: human resources, workers' comp, risk management, employee benefits, and payroll. Our goal is to reduce your labor cost and reduce your employment-related liability, reduce the time that you spend doing transactional HR stuff, which is going to increase your employee productivity, and ultimately what we're going to be able to do is maximize your profitability. Does that make sense? Okay? So go out and use increased profitability, maximize employee productivity, reducing time spent doing transactional HR, reducing employment-related liability, and ultimately reducing labor costs. Use that and understand that you need a rock-solid value proposition of very specific ways in human resources, workers' comp, risk management, benefits, and payroll that your firm actually impacts a company's profitability, that makes a difference in maximizing employee productivity, that reduces the transactional HR that they're doing, that reduces their employee-related liability, and ultimately things that reduce their labor cost. Does that make sense? So go out and use this. It's very clear, it's very succinct. Thanks for watching. You can email me at ckelley@claykelley.com. Keep your comments coming, keep your questions coming, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.